Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Continental Aspire Soccer. Today we have a very insightful and special guest, a name you may not have heard of. I'm joined with Michael Bell, the founder of the very popular Dutch football news page, FootballOranje. With nearly 18,000 followers on Twitter, FootballOranje has managed to establish itself as probably the best English-speaking Dutch news football site, not just for the Eredivsie, but any Dutch footballers across Europe. They have a constant stream of content, which is mightily impressive. They run a good podcast. They do live reactions after every video. These guys do a lot, and it's pretty amazing to be able to speak to the founder. So, Michael, it's a pleasure to meet you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a pleasure to be here and speak.
It leaves me pretty well because right now you're in the UK, right? In Edinburgh?
Yeah, I'm born and raised in Edinburgh.
Okay.
Scotland.
That leads me on to pretty interesting things. So I wanted to start with the man behind it, and I've got quite a few questions just from your upbringing. So I've read on your website about how your family is from connected to the Netherlands, right? And I was going to ask if you were raised in Holland or the UK, because if you're raised in the UK, how have you managed to build that connection with Dutch football then? Because just on my side, the only way I can watch Dutch football is really annoying live streams. How have you managed to stay connected with it?
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing, but just having a Dutch gran and being from Scotland, when you don't make major tournaments and you're watching the World Cup or European Championship, and Netherlands was always the one that I gravitated towards. I think France 98 was the last time I saw Scotland in a major tournament. So ever since then, Holland are always there. They're the team that I've supported ever since then. I think it was 2012 that after Euro 2012, I was quite annoyed at the Dutch performance and decided to set up FootballOranje's Twitter account just basically to rant about how bad Holland were at Euro 2012. And it kind of grew from there. Just from looking at Dutch football websites, I just noticed that there wasn't one that was catering for English-speaking people, whereas I wrote for a wee while on a Spanish football website about Malaga. It was Inside Spanish Football, which is gone now. But at that time, there was so many websites about Spanish football, about Italian football. You had German. Obviously, Premier League was massive, but nothing about the Eredivisie. So, yeah, I just decided to start my own one, and it's just grown ever since then. It's difficult because you had Sky Sports showing Dutch football for a little while. You got Premier Sports showing it now, but it's only selected games, so it is a case of live streams, whether it be through livesoccer.tv or betting websites. Just do the streamings for them, which are little tiny boxes in the corner, which can be quite frustrating. But if you want to watch VV Venlo against Emmen, it's the only really way to do it in the UK. So
yeah. So just wanted to pick up with the start of the things there, because we'll get into the page, believe me. So you mentioned so born and raised in Scotland. You said it seems like from a young age then you became more affiliated with the Netherlands in general and then even Scottish football. How old were you then when you were your brain was thinking, okay, I actually prefer this football from across the country? Is it all coming from like you said, the grandmother from the Netherlands?
Yeah. So especially it was basically from the Netherlands, from loving the Dutch national team, that I started getting more interested in the Eredivisie. I'm a Newcastle United fan in general. They're my team, and we had Dutch players playing for us. Like Patrick Kluivert came. He was a hero for mine playing for Netherlands, and he signed for my club. Just helped grow the love of Dutch football. And yeah, it's hard when you've got a club team that doesn't do very well, a national team that does do very well, so your interest sort of goes towards there.
I can imagine when Kluivert comes over, that must have been was that a really big moment then, in terms of almost both your interests have aligned?
Yeah, so I had the Newcastle shirt at the time with Kluivert on the back. I think I cursed him, to be honest. Any single player I get on the back of a shirt doesn't go very well at Newcastle, so yeah, it's my fault. But yeah, from there it's just gravitating towards when you see Ajax in the Champions League or following them for European tournaments. One of my earliest memories was watching a UEFA Cup game between Newcastle and Heerenveen. Newcastle went through, but Huntelaar scored for Eredivsie. He's just a youngster back then.
This was in early 2000s.
Yeah. So just seeing players like that coming through, then eventually becoming Netherlands national team players that way. And I just tried to keep up with Eredivisie as much as I could, whether it was on teletext or some weird websites back in the day. But yeah, it's just ever since then, and I'd say now that the Eredivisie is probably the league I follow the most, whereas Newcastle right now is just a dumpster fire. Yeah, so it's...
Sorry, that's a better way of putting it, a dumpster fire.
So yeah, Scottish football's never really interested me. Grew up in a household that really I'm the only really football fan.
Oh, really?
Here. Yeah, my dad supported Holland in all the big tournaments because obviously his mum's Dutch, so he remembers all the teams of the 80s and the 70s, but he wasn't a very big club football fan. I'd say now he likes Hearts, but he doesn't care if they win or lose every week, so it's me that's the big football fan of the family.
Yeah, that's fair, man. But so how old were you when you were, you mentioned about watching UEFA Cup games and stuff? How old were you? So were you just in like your teenage years, were you being able to watch the streams and things? Yeah,
so I think UEFA Cup games used to be shown on Channel 5. If there was a Newcastle one on, I got to watch it in my household. So, that's the ones I got to watch. So I was probably early 2000s, so I was probably 13, 14. The earliest tournament memories I've got are Euro 96, which I'd been about 7, and World Cup 98. So, the first big major tournaments. I remember watching Holland. France night, you had the Bergkamp goal against Argentina, which is a big memory for me. So yeah, it's just from then on, really.
Yeah, that's fair. I just want to quickly touch on as well before we get into the whole FootballOranje. You mentioned that was in 2012. How old were you when you started building that up then? Because I was going to ask I think you mentioned if you were writing before. How much prior experience did you have going into just setting up a whole page, or was it something you kind of fell into accidentally almost?
Sort of. I'd say what age would I have been? Probably 11. Probably early 20s. By the time I set up the page. So before that, it was probably a year that I was writing about Spanish football, and it was just out of nothing really. I just thought one day, I like to write. I saw an opportunity to work inside Spanish football back then, so I applied for it, and they were just accepting anyone. And for that, I did my first podcast for them and articles just about Malaga. And for that, then one day I put it out on my Twitter. I was like, why is there no Dutch English-speaking football websites? And the guy was like, why don't you just do one yourself? And I was like, yeah, might as well. And then the guys behind Inside Spanish Football, gave me some pointers on the way that they did it. So they gave me some tips on how to actually make the page and to run it. So just from there, it just grew. I don't have any computing background. I don't know, coding and stuff like that. It's a totally different world to me. But just for the hints and tips I got, you
didn't do anything easy. Like writing either, or creative writing, article writing, or anything?
No, I got a C in higher English back in high school. I wasn't ever really interested in it. So yeah, if I knew that I'd be doing this now, I'd probably have paid more attention. In high school, it wasn't really a thing for me. I never really thought in high school, this is a career path, or this is something that you could go into. So yeah.
I'm quite surprised to know it was as far back as 2012 then, because I was trying to find during my research, trying to find almost the birth of the page, and I'd seen you had an Instagram account that's going back to 2017, and I'd seen bits and bobs of it, but if FootballOranje really feels like it's taken off in the last couple of years. But can you explain to me that the early days then?
Well, the account that I first started with, so the account that you see now is the second account. Because the first account that we had gained 20,000 followers. I had quite a lot of players following it as well, which really frustrated me. But we tweeted a goal scored by Bas Dost back in the day. You used to be able to, when somebody put out a tweet as a goal, you could be a tweet video and you'd post the video out. It was a Bas Dost tap-in for Sporting Club de Portugal. And the account ended up getting suspended because the Portuguese company complained. Twitter wouldn't listened to us and said that, we'll take it down. We apologise to the Portuguese company, but they just didn't get back in touch. So yeah, from that point on, which was heartbreaking, having 20,000 followers and kept growing. Now it's taking us through like the 2014 World Cup, all that stuff there, and then luckily I started. At one point, I had the idea of, it's strange sometimes when you tweet live games, you have to tweet quite a lot about the action, and sometimes the more you tweet, sometimes it can lose you followers. So I had the idea that we'd set up a separate page that would just be for live games. So we'd have the FootballOranje one, which would be about news, and then it'd be like, if you want to follow Eredivisie action, follow this one, and you'll see live updates. So I had probably about a couple of thousand followers. So when the first one got suspended, we moved it to that one, which is the one that is now, which is sort of growing back. But the frustrating thing is that having that account also coincided with the Netherlands going in a big downturn. So things like World Cups and European Championships, we didn't get involved in because just the Netherlands weren't there. So whereas the 2014 World Cup helped push my other account up to more than 20,000 followers, it's not been that quick with this one because there's no Netherlands at major tournaments. And frustratingly, things like Louis van Gaal going to Manchester United back in the day, that garnered so much press in the Netherlands. So like Man United fans were waiting for news from the Netherlands about that. So because that's what we did, we just basically found out the news in the Netherlands and tweeted about it. That gained us a lot of followers for that. So yeah, it's frustrating to lose that account, but the one you see now is probably been around since like 2015, so that's why it's got slightly less followers and slightly less about history since 2012.
That's such a big insight. I can't believe that, though, because even back like the time you started, I've got a few things I want to hit on about that, just because the time you started, you saying 2012, 2015, the landscape's completely different then. There's not 1,000 people on Twitter with their opinions. But I was going to ask the fact that even now, I think the Eredivisie is still a bit undercovered. But apart from FootballOranje, there is literally, I can't think of anybody else doing it, especially to the level you guys do. I still think it's undercovered. So I can't imagine a landscape back then, and especially as far back then when I think even places like the Bundesliga, they're probably not getting as much coverage. But the fact that's like what I was leading with is 20,000 followers back then is a lot. And to lose that over a Bastos tap-in, I can imagine the heartbreak there.
Yeah, it's gotten out. I'll take it if it was a screamer from 30 yards in the top corner, but it's just been an absolute terrible goal as well. I think the Eredivisie is underappreciated. I think you always have people that will follow Ajax, when they ran to the Champions League semi-final, everyone's an expert on Frankie de Jong and players like that when they come through. But yeah, it's a league that doesn't get as much respect as it should get. I think you see when everyone tweets about the French league, you still get people calling it a farmers league. And whenever you tweet about a Dutch striker that's coming through, everyone is always typical, but he's scoring in the Eredivisie, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, it's frustrating that Eredivisie doesn't get as much coverage as it should. But that's our job, is to try and get out there and hopefully change that eventually.
Yeah, great job, may I say. So just want to go back to kind of like your startup up in like the past 5 or 6 years then. So how many people were helping you start up? So you said you managed to get a bit of advice from the people you're working with in Spanish news. So how quickly did it build up from just, I guess, you on your own ranting? How did the website even get made? Because one of the things that did strike me, I'm not sure if it's always been like this, but it is a really nice looking website. You've got so many different things going on. It's not basic. So how did you manage to build it up to this level? What's the path been like?
I think from the advice that I got from inside Smash Football, they had a nice website. It was kind of like, I wasn't carbon a copy of them, but a lot of the stuff that they did with theirs, I took. But then I've also got a partner with the website, Michael Statham, who's Eredivsie Mike. He helps a lot. He's got a bit more tech savvy. He does a lot of the YouTube streaming and does a lot of podcast editing. So he's put a few tweaks on the website since he's got involved as well. This is through learning, through Googling how to do stuff. Basically, you just add little sections to the website here and there. I think over the years it's advanced. The banner at the top's gone through 3 or 4 different types, and we used to have players on it. Now we don't have players on it. It's just evolved over the years. It's just a case of just continuously learning any way I can.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Eredivsie, Mike. I've actually written a couple of articles with him, actually. I didn't realise he played that much of an integral role. He's a really nice guy, so shout out to Eredivsie, Mike. But that's pretty crazy and impressive as well. I think the fact you're saying you managed to just take some things, inspired from the website you were working at. But another thing I just wanted to hit on now is the fact that, so you've mentioned Eredivsie, Mike. Right now, when you got FootballOranje, I think the most striking thing is just the level of coverage. There's a good 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces out every day, covering even the smallest games like we've mentioned, VV Venlo versus Willem Twee. There's still in-depth pieces on that at times. How's it managed to build up to that? Is it you managed to haul all of the people who are interested in the Eredivisie can speak English and get them onto the site?
Yeah, so we have contributors that help out here and there when they want to, but most of it is just basically me just watching the games in my free time. Whenever I got any free time, that I just go on, see what news there is today, and pick the biggest articles. Some days that there's less news, there'll be less news on the site, but I try and just handpick the biggest stories. I don't think they take too long to write. When you get used to writing a news story, it is pretty quick, and especially like a match report, you can have it pretty much done and dusted in 5-10 minutes if you know what you're doing with it. So it doesn't take that long each day to get it out there. But yeah, most of the time it's just me just watching the games and getting the match reports out, or me seeing the news, and then here and there there'll be other contributors putting articles out as well.
Okay, that surprised me. One of the questions I've written down was how much of a role do you play in the site now? Sounds like you're almost doing it all. Your work rate must be incredible. Imagine if you've done this the whole time then, just kind of watching all the games and still contributing not sure if it's most of, but clearly a lot of the pieces. Do you take any days off?
No. No. It's a case of, when I go on holiday, I'll be less involved in it, but I'll still spend half an hour to 45 minutes to maybe an hour a day sending out articles. I give myself a views target every day and try and hit that. So once I hit that, I'm pretty satisfied, and just make sure that sometimes there's news that does get missed. I would try and cover basically everything. You always get people that will come in and say, why don't you write about this, or why have you not put an article about Emin signing this player up, or Emin chairman saying something like this? But it's trying to pick the biggest news articles. You can't have everyone satisfied, but every day we try and get the biggest stories out there.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think it's a bit harsh to criticize you to say, well, why did you not talk about this player Emin signed? Because you still got to make sure you get people viewing the site and things. I imagine that imagine when you're covering some of the smaller games, the views must not be as good when it's Ajax in the Champions League. But to keep that up still, that's impressive. Just quickly, do you speak a bit of Dutch then, or not at all? Was it managed to pick stuff up?
I can say a few phrases here and there. I've got Duolingo. I'll go for that. I did take some classes when I was younger. I can read it better than I can speak it or write it. If I see an article in Dutch, I know what most of the words mean, and the translation is pretty easy. It's just speaking it's a totally different kettle of fish. Something that I would love to do is be able to learn it so it's fluent. But when you go over there, they all want to speak to you in English anyway, and when you do start speaking in Dutch, you can tell straight away that you're not from there, because some of the language is quite hard. But yeah, I'd love to be able to learn it fluently, but I'm just not there yet. I can say a few phrases here and there. I've got Duolingo. I'll go for that. I did take some classes when I was younger. I can read it better than I can speak it or write it. If I see an article in Dutch, I know what most of the words mean, and the the translation's pretty easy. It's just speaking it's a totally different kettle of fish. Something that I would love to do is be able to learn it so it's fluent. But when you go over there, they all want to speak to you in English anyway, and when you do start speaking in Dutch, you can tell straight away that you're not from there, because some of the language is quite hard. But yeah, I'd love to be able to learn it fluently, but I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, no, the reason I was asking that is because we mentioned about how a lot of the games you do have to watch with some, like if it's a Bet365 stream, or even it might be a stream of something like Hesgo or somewhere. Like what I try and keep up with a lot of different sites. You mentioned French football. I try and keep heavily up with that, and it's benefiting for me because BT Sport cover that, so they get English commentators. With Dutch football, sometimes I'll be watching it, and you'll try and pay attention, and it's a lot easier to almost fall out of it, because when it's Dutch commentators, it can be, I guess it can be harder to, you don't realize how much harder it is to focus than if it's an English commentator kind of keeping it in your ear. So that I'm just amazed at the fact you've managed to, like, how do you stay focused during these games when you're watching VV Venlo versus Sparta Rotterdam? Obviously you are into the Eredivisie, but some of these games must still be a bit like, not boring, but pass you by. How do you stay interested in that, not just to keep your knowledge up, but if you're writing a match report on
it? I don't know, maybe I'm just weird today. I find it fascinating and manage to keep the focus on there. Sometimes I just don't have the sound on, and I'll just have it on in the background. And sometimes you do, for some match reports, it will just be a case of the key aspects of the game that you do catch. So you might just lose a bit of focus and a goal go in, and you'll see it on a replay. So that's how you know it's gone in. Then you'll tweet out. I can't say I watch every second of every single game, but yeah, I do try and keep up with basically the match highlights. And it's hard when, like most leagues, the Dutch games, they sometimes have two on at the same time, so you can't really focus on both of them. So it's just a case of getting the key moments out of each game, and then sometimes relying on seeing a match report that gets put out by Football International or something like that. Then you can just see what you missed anything that way.
Yeah, it's useful to use the tools, I guess. So you mentioned how with the old page and the old Twitter account, you said about the highlight was 2014 World Cup, and of course the Dutch national team kind of nosedived in international ranking in that time. But has there been any other points since then that you've seen a lot of attention come to the site? I imagine we mentioned the Ajax run to the Champions League. Was that quite a big time for FootballOranje, managing to bring in a lot of attention there?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for the site is when a club does well in Europe, or the Netherlands. Like the Netherlands national team is something completely different, because as much views as I get for the Eredivisie or a Dutch player abroad, nothing compares to the views that you get when Netherlands are playing, or the amount of comments you get when Netherlands are playing. It's just a totally different kettle of fish. So when Netherlands run to the Nations League final, I'd say that was a big thing. And yeah, Ajax run to Champions League did get quite a lot of views, but nothing compared to when the Netherlands does well. So that's really what we're hoping for, is that obviously Euro 2020, now in 2021, if the Netherlands go far, that'll be huge for the site. Whereas Ajax reaching the semi-final is good for the Champions League, but it's not huge compared to the Netherlands doing well. I don't know what it is. I know that Netherlands national team, it has followers from all around the world, whereas Ajax is a bit more niche. So yeah, whenever Netherlands do well, the site does well, and sometimes when Netherlands doesn't do well, it also does well for the site, because people like to rant. That's why I set up the site. As soon as everyone has an opinion on Netherlands, as soon as they lose, you get loads of people ranting at you. Why did Frank de Boer this? Frank de Boer's crap. All this sort of thing. So yeah, it's great for the site either way, but the Netherlands is the push for it.
Yeah, we'll get onto Frank de Boer's Netherlands a lot later. I know that's a hot topic, but I tell you what, that's quite surprising. I would have thought Ajax, or even not necessarily Ajax, but a Dutch team going far in the Champions League would have been bigger. I didn't realise the Netherlands had that much bigger of a story. I mean, what's your audience generally like? Is it people like you who are from the UK and trying to keep in touch with the Eredivisie, or is it a bit more? Do you get a lot of views straight from the Netherlands of people using your site just to stay in touch, What's your audience like?
So I'd say that Netherlands, I would say, is a difficult one because, most of the stuff that we're putting out there, they can get from any single site in the Netherlands. But we do get quite a lot of views from the Netherlands in terms of like pieces that we put out. So opinion pieces or podcasts, that's when the Netherlands views will come in, especially on the Dutch national team. But a lot of it's from, like America, Canada. We get a lot of emails from Canada saying that people over there, they have no way of keeping in touch with the Eredivisie, and they grew up, say, in the Netherlands, but there's nothing over there. So they use my site to try and keep track. So I'd say the three biggest markets that we've got are the UK, America, Canada, and then Netherlands would be after that. China's big as well. So yeah, it's global. I've been viewed. When you go on the Google map, you've been viewed in every single country in the world. Except for North Korea. I'm kind of waiting for that one North Korean guard that's in the border to like just tap on the website just to see. But yeah, it's crazy when I look at stuff like Google Maps and see where the site's being viewed, because it is just all over the world. But yeah, UK, America is probably the biggest ones.
It must be so surreal. I guess it is interesting to think of it that way. It's not just people like us from the UK who are interested in Dutch football. You've got people who will speak English in America and Canada who will keep in touch. And I do. The reason I actually came across your site, I came across it before your Twitter account, which I think has the wide reach. But I remember I was just writing a piece about, I think it was Roger Schmidt taking over at PSV, and the first articles that come up on Google straight away are from your website. So you kind of led your way to the top. And with that, it was part of another question, but I'm interested to know your thoughts on this. How happy are you, or do you think you are the reason there's not a get Dutch football news account in the same vein as the get French football news, get German football news? I feel like you're the outlier in that empire.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the number one. If you want to start up that, I can't go for it. But yeah, I'd love to have the amount of followers that Get French Football News has, but still need to get up there. But yeah, talk about competitors there on. There's been a few that always start up. I think there was one called Total Dutch Football News that came and went and keeps coming back and going again. There's been a few over the times that I've tried to start up, as I don't think that they get that viewership, or maybe they don't spend as much time as we do on it and have that focus on it. But yeah, one day if Ajax and PSV keep improving, that Get Dutch Football News will start up, and then we'll have a competitor that'll just push us to do even better, probably. That's
a good way of looking at it. Well, I prefer the idea. I mean, I write for Get French Football News, so who knows it'll get me in trouble? It won't. But I like the idea that the boss of the Get News empire is looking at, all right, so we've got France will cover that, Italy will cover that, Germany will cover that, Netherlands beaten to it. FootballOranje just smashed us to it.
Hopefully that is it. I'll take that. It's fine.
I think it is, to be honest. I think I do remember actually seeing a Get Dutch Football News account, and it only had a couple of followers. And I think they might have started it and realised, we're out of the market here. You've kind of got the lock on it. But with that, like you obviously the founder, the editor, you're still writing on it. How do you keep everything sort of in check? Because you said you have your different contributors. Now, I've written for various websites, and one article could it can be the complete different to another one. The tone could be different, or the aim of it can be completely different. It almost feels like on your website, not everything's written by the same person. It's not like it's limited. I'm not meaning that, but it's all on brand. It's all in check. How do you manage to keep on top of that? That must take even more work than just simply like even doing the work you do.
Yeah. So, any articles that get contributed to us, I check them over. I keep them in the same structure. And anyone that wants to write for the website, I say to the start, you've got to keep to the same structure that we've got on the site. And then, anytime that one comes through, I'll look for it, make sure it's all well and good before I send it out. So yeah, it does take time. If somebody contributes an article and it's sometimes get, back in the day when I first started, you'd get people constantly wanting to write for you, and it'd be 15, 16-year-old kids that want somewhere to put their articles, and maybe it wouldn't be good enough. So you'd give them that feedback. Is you'd work on your spelling, your grammar. It's all totally wrong. That bit I don't like it. I don't like telling people that it's not great. 'Cause, if they want to put an article on my website, it's fine. Like, I can give them that platform and want to give other people a chance. But yeah, sometimes you just need to make sure that what you're putting out there is of good quality, because if it's not, then people will stop coming to your site. So you just need to make sure that keeping control of that.
It's like that clash, isn't it? Like, you want to give these people a chance, especially since you're a big fan of Eredivisie. I'm sure it makes you excited when other people from the UK or all over the place are getting involved in it, but need to make sure it's up to scratch. I mean, what do you have some of the contributors that have stayed here for a while? Because I can imagine that there must be some 15, 16-year-olds who'll go, yeah, I want to write about Dutch football. And then after a few months, they'll go, I'm not too sure. Or like, is there quite a big core at your site, or is it a lot more of a revolving door that you have to keep in check?
I'd say that, there's a group of maybe 5 to 10 that are regular contributors that come back now and then. But yeah, at the start it was a revolving door. You get people that think of like one article and they're like, I really want to write about Dutch football, and then they run out of ideas, or they run out the passion for it and they want to write about something else. I've had people that have come to the site, done a few articles for us and went on to other things, started up their own websites and stuff like that, which is great. If they come to us to write one article, then they can do whatever they want. So like, it's not as if I'm holding them back or anything like that. You can. It's good to see the successes that some people have had that I've written for my website to go on to other things. But yeah, I see it as a website. It's there for the news and sometimes feature articles, and it's just a case of it's a hobby for me. It's not something that's a career. So yes, just getting out there to love the Dutch football, and that's really what it's there for.
Yeah, I was gonna ask this question. I guess you don't have to answer if you want, but with football writing, and like I write for various sites and don't make a cent. It's just more about getting your profile out there. But as the founder of the site, I mean, was there a point where you were able to treat this as your main? I know you just mentioned it as a hobby, but do you do anything else outside of this, or was there a point where it was able to become your sort of main thing where you can live off?
No, so I've always worked full time as well. So yeah, this is just a side project, really. I've done bits and bobs for Site the Metro or read an article for 442 in the past. It's stuff like that you get a little bit of money for, but nothing substantial to make it a full-time career. I've not really pushed for that either, so I don't go to other sites and say, can I write for you or anything like that. I'm kind of just happy with what I've got and the way I'm doing it with FootballOranje. So sometimes you get asked to come on radio channels or podcasts like this, and I'm happy to do that for free and just get the message out there. It's not really something that I treat as going into a full-time career or anything. If it did happen, if like for instance World Soccer or 442 decided, we want somebody that knows about Dutch football and want you to write full-time for us, I'll be like, yeah, great. But right now, I don't think that's realistic, and it's just something that I treat as a hobby.
As the #1 Dutch football news site for English speakers and treats it as a hobby. I did not expect to hear that one. That's crazy, especially after all the work rate we've talked about. Maybe to do something at the same time during this. It's crazy. Also, I'm going to try and stick with the FootballOranje because the pronunciations are different here. FootballOranje, FootballOranje. I'm sticking with FootballOranje on your side. But okay, so we're going to briefly move away from FootballOranje. I want to, as you said, I think as well, listeners will know now that probably one of the experts to go to for Dutch football, been writing about it for ages. So I want to hit you with some topics that I think are a little more mainstream, but are quite hot in terms of Dutch football. Okay, so we'll hit straight off the bat. Where are Netherlands finishing this year in the Euros?
I think, well, if I go with my heart, we're going to win it. But if I go with my head, the group to me looks good on paper. If you have a 6-round plan that they've got now, and all the games are played in Amsterdam, and everyone should be sailing through that. But then when you get to the knockout rounds, it gets a bit trickier. So yeah, my heart would say we got a chance of winning it, but my head would say quarterfinals or semi-finals would be good for this team.
Yeah, I think your group's actually really easy. I can't remember off the top of my head that was in it, but I remember doing something on it recently on a podcast called Eurowatch, and the Netherlands, me and my co-host went into, were quite worried about, because obviously there is this big fracas around Frank de Boer, but your route to at least the semis looks pretty interesting. We actually, I mean, just to hit on the Dutch Netherlands side, so I think sometimes it's a lot of fun when someone from the Eredivisie gets into the main team. What players do you think can start for the Dutch national team from the Eredivisie? Well, I was thinking Steven Berghuis. I know he's gone a bit. I think I actually saw from you guys he's gone a bit down recently, but he's got a lot of goal contributions. Do you think Steven Berghuis could play in it? Donyell Marlon, these type of players?
Yeah, for me, Berghuis. He's got a lot of goal contributions, but a lot of them are penalties. I know he's a great player for Feyenoord, but he's not done well in this year. For Feyenoord, I think it's something like 9 games for a goal, I think, maybe 7. But yeah, he's dropped off considerably in recent weeks for me, and 3 big games in a row that Feyenoord have lost, and he's been invisible in all of them. So for me, he's a good player, but if I'm talking Dutch national team quality, no. You want the best players playing for the national team, and I think there's other ones that I'd rather see, even from the Eredivisie, such as Malin, who I think is a great player. I'd had her in if he gets his mojo back. He's struggled at times this year, but he's so young and technical, and the vision he has is incredible for his age. So I think he's one to keep an eye on. For AZ, you've got Calvin Stengs, who I think is a very different type of player, and one that I've going to predict a big future for. Coop Miners, I want to see more of him in the national team. I think he's insanely good. I don't think he gets the credit he deserves. And I think the one that everyone's raving about now, especially me, is Ryan Gravenberch at Ajax. I think he's in line for, when the Netherlands play in March, I'd be starting him in midfield. He's that good. So he's one that I'd keep an eye on as well.
Damn, fair enough. See, with Gravenberch, I've always thought, whenever I've watched him, he's been really good on the ball. Just feel like he's still a little raw. That's just been my takeaway. But I think he is part of he's one of the best players in the Ajax side, which I think have taken somewhat of a dip since the days of Frankie de Jong and Matthias de Ligt, which, let's face it, that was an incredible team. What do you think of any other talents around the Eredivisie? Let's talk about outside the main 3, I guess, at the moment, of PSV, AZ, and Ajax. Is there any other young players that spring to mind? For me, I guess, to give an example, I've always been a fan of Joey Veerman at Heerenveen, the centre midfielder. I think he's always looked really good for his age. What other players do you think you can bring to the table?
Yeah, so I was going to, straight away you mentioned that, I was going to say Joey Veerman, because he's a player that I love, and I think he's got a massive future. Elsewhere, I really like Karui at Sparta Rotterdam, attacking midfielder. He's the Netherlands under-21 international. Heerenveen also have Van Heck, who joined Brighton in the summer, but then got loaned to Heerenveen, the centre-back. I think he's done really well this season. Looking at the test, they have a few homegrown midfielders coming through. Huisman is born and bred. He kind of reminds me a bit of Van Henkel, coming through there. Groningen have a couple as well, Van Kam brothers, the 2 twins, both of them very young in the midfielders. Keep an eye out for them. So yeah, and Vitesse just signed a striker on loan, Noah Ohio, who is joined from RB Leipzig. He's a young Dutch/English striker. So I want to see more of him in action in the next couple of months. I mean, he's got a lot of potential around him. I think everywhere else. There's quite a few.
I think Danilo as well. Danilo at FC Twente. They've got a couple of good players coming through there.
Yeah, Danilo up front, Brazilian striker from Ajax. Yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen to him in the summer, because I don't know if Ajax are going to keep hold of him. Yeah, and elsewhere at Sparta Rotterdam, Sven Meijens, he's a winger, he's coming through there. They've got a really young striker on the bench as well, Omega. He's getting linked with big clubs as well, big powerful striker. So yeah, it's the same with the Eredivisie every year. There's always talents coming from nowhere that'll.
Just quickly, has there been any times where you've been covering it for so long? Has there been any times where you've pinpointed a youngster, you thought this player, like you said with Joey Veerman and others, you said this player will go to the top or this player will have a great future, and then they have? Did you manage to pick out? I know it's cliche. Did you manage to pick out a young Frankie de Jong way before he managed to reach his peak?
Yeah, so starting on the website when we did, the big player that was coming around about the time was Memphis Depay. You know, he was just coming on as a substitute for PSV, so we begged him up big time. You know, he's one of my favourite players, and the frustration is that he went to Man United and didn't do well, because whatever happens now, you've always got places like the Mirror and places like that in England that will just call him a Manchester United flop, whereas you could weed onto the title this year. He's probably been one of the better players. I don't watch a lot of French football, but he's been one of the better players in France this year. He's got to get a big move in the summer, but you know, because of that spell at Man United, it's tainted him a little bit. But for me, he's massive player. He's great, so we always backed him up. The one that we'll always look back on as being the biggest shame is Abdelak Nouri, because he was on our site. He was going to be the big thing for Ajax for years, and then obviously what happened with him was shocking, and it's very sad. And we always backed him up. Same with Bergwijn, Van de Beek. These players, we always had eyes on them when they were in the Ajax under-19s and writing articles about them. So yeah, every year we try and put out articles that are the top Dutch youngsters to watch in the league, and yeah, so we've always got to focus on the youngsters coming through.
Yeah, that's fair. It's quite sad to mention about Nouri as well. I get what you're saying about the Depay thing too. I feel like it can. Some people may write off these leagues in terms of like the French league, Eredivisie, Belgian league, the sort of leagues that aren't in the top 5 or the bottom in case of the French league. They think they're not worth watching farmers football, but they can be really exciting when players break through. I'm sure when Depay broke through, we recently did a video on PSV. Depay breaking through, he got Player of the Year in his first or second season, didn't he? And we were looking at Anderlecht actually a couple of days ago, and Lukaku, when he came through at Anderlecht, he was 16 and he got 9 goal contributions in the Europa League. You do just see these phenomenons come through, and even if they apparently end up as flops, they can be really exciting to watch. Okay, so we'll go back to the modern time now, just that tangent. All right, so quickly, Michael, who do you think will win the Eredivisie this season?
Oh, tough one. I think all the way through, I've always said PSV. I think that if right now they're struggling with injuries, and if that continues, then it'll be Ajax. But I think if PSV get their squad out, get the Mario Götze back, get Gakpo back, get Madueke back from injury, I think they've got the most exciting and talented squad in the Eredivisie. I think Ajax have a few problems. I think Ajax sometimes take their eye off the ball sometimes. I don't think they've been as good as they have been in recent years. You have to win tonight, they're going to go 4 points clear. But yeah, I think PSV have a big role to play in the coming months. And if they can get their full strength team out, then I think that they could end up being the surprise winners.
Yeah, I think that's a fair evaluation. I don't know if you agree, but I think with Ajax, I think a good way to compare them is to, their winger Anthony. They're like fantastically talented, very young, amazing future, but at times is a bit raw and can disappear. And I feel like we get that with Ajax. And I also think, what's your thoughts on Lassina Traore? Because I don't think every time I've watched him, he's always disappointed me a little. Do you think he's got the top striker inside of him, or he's not really going to make it any further?
I think the problem with Traore is he scores goals, but if you play up front for Ajax, you're going to get the chances to score goals, and a lot of his goals are close range sort of tap-ins. He's not scoring like 30-yard stunners into the top corner, because I don't think he has that sort of technique. When you look at the strikers that played for Ajax in the past, the Zlatans, the Suarez's, Huntars, he's not in that caliber. He's not ever going to be in that caliber. But I think this summer, I think some English club will buy him. He's being linked with the likes of West Ham, stuff like that. I think somebody will come in, look at his goal rate, not really look at what he does. He's big and powerful and think that he's going to be one for the future. But yeah, I can't see him being that top level. I think the ball just bounces off him a bit too much to be that next level striker.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I mean, feels like I could talk to you all day with this Dutch football stuff. It's rare you get someone so informed about it. It's always fun to talk about. I'll just hit you with one more Dutch football topic. Out of Ajax and PSV, who do you think will go further in the Europa League? I mean, Ajax are playing Lille, who Lille have been on fire this season, but they're probably likely to focus on Ligue 1. PSV play Olympiacos. I guess it's a bit of an easier tie, but as we saw last season, Olympiacos are good in knockout ties. Who do you think will go further, and how far do you think they can go?
See, it's difficult with PSV in Europe because they've been so hit and miss this season, especially, and we saw them get battered by, I never know how to say their name, but PAOK, I'm just going to say PAOK, PAOK, the Greek side in the group stages, because sometimes they focus too much on attack and get hit on the counter. I had to say PSV will go further. I think that Lille's going to be a very, very tough tie for Ajax, especially if Ten Hag might decide to focus on the league, especially if they remain so close with PSV. They might put more focus into that, and squad depth and just defensive issues that Ajax have. Lille might be able to expose them a bit. So yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I'm writing stories in a couple of weeks that Sven Botman's revenge against Ajax, something like that. That's kind of what I'm predicting is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, just handle something on Sven Botman. I mean, you've managed to watch Eredivsie. I watch French football every week, and Sven Botman I can't believe Ajax letting go. He's one of the best centre backs I've seen in such a long time. Every time you talk about him, it feels like you're overrating him or overhyping him, but he's just that good. It's scary that Ajax let him go.
Yeah, the thing that annoys me is whenever you say anything about Sven Botman, you'll get a constant stream of Ajax fans telling you that he's not good enough. You wouldn't have played to our system. Then you watch Ajax and Per Skurs is letting players run past him. He's so easily. You're just like, either you're just trying to get into your head that Sven Botman wasn't good enough, so it makes you feel better. Because whenever I've seen him, I think he's been great. Even for Herenveen last season, I thought he was great. So I don't really understand why they let him go and kept Skurs. It's the same with Noah Lang. Whenever you mention Noah Lang, you're like, oh well, we kept Quincy Promes. He had a good season last year. Whereas if you look at it now, Noah Lang's exploded in Belgium, and Promes is terrible. So yeah, it's one of these things that hindsight's always a good thing, but sometimes Ajax fans can be a bit stubborn with, especially the Botman, and their opinion that he isn't good enough.
Yeah, I was arguing actually on the podcast about the Dutch national team. My colleague said to me that he wanted to put Quincy Promising at left wing over Steven Bergwijn, and I told him he's lost his head. And that thing of Promise is almost like sometimes you'll see players like Berghuis who are good in the Eredivisie, but they're not at Dutch national team level. I watch Promise and I think he's not even good enough at times in the Eredivisie, which is quite a damning thing. And to start him in the Euros, I don't think he is all there. But I've gone through so much, Michael. I feel like I could have talked to you all day, but we'll make sure it's short and keep it up for a part 2. It's been a pleasure. My last question was going to be, what aspirations have you got going forward for yourself and FootballOranje? What's the end goal?
End goal, it's not really one. It's just to continue to grow, to continue to grow the website. It'd be great to get the Twitter account back to where it was, over 20,000 followers. We're trying to push it constantly. If we can start getting more interviews with some of the bigger players, would be great. I know Michael tries to get interviews with quite a lot of the players over there. On our YouTube channel, I've got ones with Frankie De Jong and things like that. So yeah, that's just the aspirations to continue growing. There's not really an end goal. There's not really something we're working towards. It's just a case of continue to push the Dutch league is the best one in the world, and that's the message we'll keep trying to push. It's
a very sensible sort of, not end goal, but goal, as he said. Right, Michael, I just want to give you the platform to say where can we find you and everything Football Oranje is doing? YouTube, Twitter, everything. You'll know the handles off by heart, I'm sure. If not, then this will be a good test.
Yeah, so I'm Michael J Bell 9 on Twitter. FootballOranje.com's got a hyphen in the middle of it, and it's spelled with a J, not a G. So like a lot of people will come on and say, "Oh, you work for Football Orange." It's not Football Orange; it's Football Oranje. But yeah, it's with a J. And then if you type that into YouTube, you'll get our YouTube channel. If you type it into Twitter, you'll find our Twitter account as well.
I almost wish I started this podcast by saying, "Welcome, Michael, the founder of Football Orange." That would have gone well.
I would just log straight off. I'd be like, that's enough.
But yeah, as I said, Michael, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching Continental Aspire Soccer. Remember to check out our online football course. All of us on social media. You can find Michael. We'll have his page popping up right now. Please remember to subscribe, and goodbye.